If you're in this business, you should not think about money. Money will come as you become great. So even if I have to make 50 cents on a dollar, the education that I'm going to get from that person for 1 year or 2 years, that is priceless. 100% of zero is zero.
I love helping people achieve success in this business. You can't get to the settlement table as agents saying, oh, well, he's getting more than me. Negotiate better. If you represent a buyer, you negotiate your commission. And if you're a seller, you negotiate with your seller and decide how that works. So the conversations have changed already where buyers are saying,
Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is EdRogers, honest real estate broker owner. Ed, welcome to the show.
Pat, thanks for having me again. It's always absolutely a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so this is our anniversary show. I called you, I guess maybe about a month or two ago. I said, Ed, it's time. So for full disclosure here, Ed was my first guest on the podcast. I think I had 0 subscribers back there.
A couple after that.
You got me a couple after that. But now, I'm really proud to say, almost at 50,000 subscribers, so really help me out. Subscribe, do some likes, really helps the algorithm out. So please, I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming on the show again for our traditional anniversary show.
Thanks for having me back as always, and I'm sorry to cancel on you last week. We were supposed to be then, so.
Okay, so some people may not know you. I mean, this does go, nationwide.
Yep.
So just tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get started? Tell me about Honest Real Estate.
Okay. So Honest Real Estate, we're licensed Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Mm-hmm. We've been open, this is our 8th year right now, as an independent brokerage. Prior to that, I worked in a franchise company for many years as an independent agent, solo agent, right. No team or anything like that.
Okay, and then how many agents do you have and offices do you have now?
So right now we have a little over 100 agents. This time last year on the show, I think we had like 140 or so, but we kind of revamped this year over the last 8 to 10 months, kind of changed directions that we're going in. So we have like 102, 103 at this point.
Okay, and then why? Just interesting, revamping. Did you want to do, more personalized attention? Just better quality agent? What were you?
So I'm very goal driven. I like to put goals on paper. I like to achieve the goals, or at least strive to achieve them. But through the journey of being a broker and owner, I realized that not all people are that way. And I noticed that we used to have a saying when we first opened Honest Real Estate, the first couple of years was, if you had a heartbeat and a real estate license, you could join our brokerage. But we don't charge monthly, we don't charge desk fees, office fees, or quarterly. So as we've grown, we realized we have a lot of agents that aren't actually real estate agents. And that's kind of what made our shift to change a little bit and change the direction of where we're going to put our energy and our focus and our time into.
Right. Okay. And then Honest Real Estate, why did you decide to call it Honest Real Estate?
I always tell the same story. I was driving myself crazy, which was delaying me from actually, opening the business. And one day, just driving in the car with my wife, told her, I said, this is driving me crazy. I can't figure out a name. I had so many different names going on. And she said, what's your biggest practice in real estate? And I said, honesty. And she said, there you go. And I was driving the car and I started laughing and I said, honest real estate. And from there, that we got home, we checked the name, make sure it was available, right. Did everything we have to do. But so for me, the biggest practice in real estate is honesty. Things go wrong, just be transparent with everybody involved in a transaction, and you can usually get through and make it successful.
Okay, and then offices, you just acquired a bigger building, right?
Yeah, we just purchased a It's about 6,800 square foot freestanding office space in Bucks County. It's in Falls Township, on a major strip, one of the major roads in the township, and in Bucks County,
Right.
Which I just found out the other day. The road that we're on stretches from the East Coast to the West Coast, which was pretty interesting for me. So one day I plan to travel from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's on Lincoln Highway, or Old Lincoln Highway. So we just acquired that in December, and plan is to provide a better experience for agents and for clients as a whole when they enter the facility.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's jump into some questions. The first question I have, you have over 100 agents.
Yeah.
So what is the number one thing? What do agents tell you? Why would they come work for Honest Real Estate versus like the big names, maybe, KW, Compass, or what have you?
I think a lot of it is depending on the experience of the agent. It's if you're a new agent, maybe they're looking for mentorship, you're looking for communication, you're looking for hands-on experience, which we provide. We have mentor program. I tell people everyone in my company has my cell phone number. The only time I don't answer is if I'm doing a podcast with you or on the other line. So even though they have other people to connect with, they're still able to reach me directly, which I think is really good for some of the agents. And then I hear sometimes maybe they don't want to pay a franchise fee to the larger companies. We're independently owned and operated, so we don't have that franchise fee that other companies have. So it essentially puts more money back into the agent's pockets. And then some of them that are experienced and they're doing a decent amount of deals per year, they're looking to be able to get to 100% commission at some point.
Right.
So because we're independently owned, again, we have a low cap where once the company earns so much from the deals that they do, they then keep 100% of their commission until their anniversary starts over. So there's a lot of different conversations, when I talk with agents. So I don't think it's one specific thing.
Okay, and then for you, what do you think should be the most important thing for an agent? If you had to say one thing, because I know, I'm a loan officer, work for the same company, been doing this for 30 years, and I have conversations all the time with people, and I know the number one thing I tell people on their side, and I'll share it with you just to see if it's the same. So what do you think is the most important thing that a realtor should be asking you?
I guess I want to understand the question. So when they're with our company, or when they're like what exactly?
When they're interviewing and coming to see if they want to work with you or if they want to go somewhere else.
I think the most important piece for an agent is to be able to connect with somebody, to be able to help their client. So if their client asks them a question, can they get an answer directly from the brokerage to be able to provide that response back to their client? So I think communication is probably one of the biggest things that we try to provide.
And almost the same as what I say. For me, and maybe we sort of circled around it, but you did mention it, to me is mentoring, which is the communication, finding out answers.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things you do not know. Just because you're licensed, you know nothing. And if you're in this business, you should not think about money, in my opinion. Money will come as you become great. But for me is, can somebody teach me? Because the amount of education that I get, and if somebody's good and teach you the information, I will make money down the road. So even if I have to make 50 cents on a dollar, the education that I'm going to get from that person for 1 year or 2 years, that is priceless. Exactly. To me, and I have conversations with loan officers all the time. What's your comp? What's your comp? What's your comp? It doesn't matter. You know nothing.
Yeah.
So it's irrelevant. 100% of zero is zero.
Every company has different structures, which I think is beautiful. I analyze every single company to self-educate and to be able to propel us into the future and be, more long-standing and an actual force in the marketplace. But I think if you don't have the right mentorship, you're you're screwed in this industry, you know, and I think that's, you know, it is super important, you know, in all aspects.
Right. And the statistic is, I believe, and you hear these different statistics all the time, after 5 years, 85% of agents are out of the business.
Yep.
So, you know, whatever that number is,
Yeah.
but it's super high. And because people think it's easy, they don't understand that, hey, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And somebody's got to teach you. Just because you pass a test, that means you can start learning the business because you know nothing. I mean, in all reality.
In the last, what's this, January, I'd say, beginning of the summer, we rolled out, we always did goal setting and things like that, but over the years, we critiqued it, and we have a goal setting sheet that we give to agents, which is about 8 pages. It's not something that you can do in the morning to review with us, because you have an appointment with us in the afternoon and review.
Right.
It's something that you really have to sit down and define where you're getting business from, where you want to go, how you want to grow, and where do you want to be in 5, 10, or 15 years in this industry. And what I say to every single agent is, don't look at the top producers. Look at yourself and say, I've done 0 deals in the last 12 months as an agent, and my goal for the next 12 months is 2 deals,
right,
or 4 deals, like whatever that is, and work towards achieving your goals. Because if you can't set that, you can't go from 0 to 50 deals in a year. It is impossible. I've never seen anybody do it.
Right.
If you have done it, please tell me the secret sauce,
right,
because I've never seen it.
Comment.
Yeah, let us know what it is. But set your own goals and find your own success in this business. You don't have to make what some people calls a lot of money. Like, find out what your goals are and achieve those, and that is success. And that's kind of what we're trying to push our agents for.
Right.
And we support agents when they come and say, I want to do 2 deals. That's fantastic for us. Let's help you do those 2 deals. The next agent might say, I want to do 40 deals, and that's fantastic, and let's help you get there too.
Right.
So it's finding out what does each person want, and then being there to push them and encourage them and be there as a resource to help them achieve it too.
Okay, great. Okay, so why don't we jump subjects here, because we sort of hit that one already. Social media. You're big on social media.
Love social media.
Love social media.
I'm addicted to social media.
So, why do you do it?
Yep.
What is some of the feedback? And then how does that translate to business for you?
I believe my social media, so my dad taught me, before I even had a Facebook, get on Facebook, get in front of people, whether it's posting, it's engaging, things like that. God rest his soul. But from that point forward, I said, that stays in the back of my mind. And I believe that social media should not be all business. It should not be all personal. It should be a mixture of both. So the consumer or the client should know exactly who you are. If you have a family, they should see your family, right? If you are buying a second home, or you're buying a big place that we just bought, people should see that, because they should see that you're also a human being and you can be relatable. I put something up on social media the other day and said, we're expected to get 15 inches of snow this weekend. I hope it turns into the blizzard of 96. I had people messaging me on the side. I had people commenting. It has nothing to do with real estate. It's just engagement. So when people, a consumer or a client, can relate to you, they will naturally trust you and then start asking real estate questions. You don't have to force it down anybody's throat. You just have to be open for engagement. And I think that's, for me, from when I look at my social media, I think it's really good in that aspect. It could be better. Everything could be better. But I think it's super beneficial. I talk about my success. I talk about my failures. I'm very transparent. Getting a little emotional. I talk about some emotional stuff on there because you have to be relatable. And I think that's what has helped my business through all these years. You know?
And I will say, I'm bad on social media.
Do you have social media?
I have social media. I have social media, but I don't share my personal stuff on social media, which that human relationship, and where that comes into play. Like, I'll see clients turn around and say, and I always use this example. It wasn't this exactly, but hey, little Johnny just hit a home run type of thing, right? And I'll turn around and I'll say, oh man, that's really great. You must be so proud, type of thing. Well, just that little interaction there, they're drawn to come back to you because now they're selling their house. Now they're moving up on the house, and they give me a call, say, "Hey, Pat, can you do my loan?" Because of that simple engagement of it. So I do 100% agree of what you're saying. I'm just not that personal type, like I have like this like guard that I don't want anybody to know anything personally. Other than friends or whatever, which is bad.
Yeah.
But 100% it works.
Yeah. So I say social media is important because I told you a story about my own daughter where she wants to go to college. And talking to you, you said, that's where my daughter went to college. So I was able to then make another connection with you and be like, and then tell my daughter, tell my wife those things of, hey, I talked to Pat Lopez, his daughter went here. So I think if some kids don't want to be on there. My son says, don't fucking don't put me on social media. Things like that. But I think it's important to engage with, don't let everybody engage with you, but engaging back with them at the same time, liking their posts, say little Billy did great at baseball, just those little concepts.
Yeah, and then just to move on to the next subject, like the biggest engagements I get is, when my daughter graduated college and I'm in front, with her in her hat and cap, like everybody and her grandmother comments, on that stuff. But that's few and far between with, for me. But yeah, I mean, without question, they're big as engagement. I could hold a check that somebody got a grant for $50,000, and 2 or 3 people. Oh, that's great. But my daughter graduating, there's 200, 300 people.
If I post something with a settlement, that usually gets the least amount of engagement for me, like on Instagram and Facebook. Right. So if we're at a settlement together, we take a picture and I post it, I might get 6 likes. 12 likes, couple comments, things like that. But when I post something that's outside of that is where all the engagement lives.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I see it. One of these days I'll get a little bit better. Okay, so let's jump into the market because a lot of people out here want to know about the market.
I love the market.
So we had 2025,
correct,
which was an okay year, not a great year, still depressed in comparison to 2020 when we had over 6 million sales. We had a little bit over 4 million transactions, and then you have 2 sides, buyer seller side, so that's 8 million versus 12 million, that kind of thing. So it was still depressed, but this year we're going into hopefully the spring market if we can maintain interest rates that are a little bit lower. Last year we were around 7%, now we're around 6%. Of course, I always preface, it depends on the type of loan you do, down payment, credit scores, all that. Interest rates may vary with all those programs, but needless to say, interest rates are about a full percentage point lower.
Which is great.
And the buzzword affordability. Hey, if interest rates are lower, it's a little bit more affordable to buy. So what are you seeing? What are people telling you, whether it be a buyer, seller? Do they realize that interest rates are a little bit lower? Tell me your thoughts. What do you see?
So last year you asked me this question, what do you see in 2025? And I said, I think we see the same we saw in 2024, where the same conversations with buyers are happening, the same conversations with sellers are happening. Buyers are saying rates are too high. Sellers are saying, I got a 3% rate. I don't want to sell and get a 7% rate. In the last, and I've been telling everybody, January 2nd, I feel like the market went like that. It kicked right back on where we do business. Everyone does business in different parts of the city.
Local. Yep.
Yeah, so where we're at, I feel like January 2nd, it just kicked right back on. And I analyze, the data and things like that. So the conversations have changed already where buyers are saying, I wish I bought that home last year because it was cheaper.
Right.
Same neighborhood, same home. It was cheaper. Yes, I understand now what you were saying. The rate was higher, but I could refi it in the future. And they're starting to see that now. So what a buyer is starting to see, from what I understand, is the rate is going down, but those prices are still driving up.
Right.
So the buyers are saying, yeah, I'm getting a lower rate, but I'm actually paying more for the home, and it's offsetting itself at the same time, as opposed to getting it a little bit cheaper 12 months ago and paying a little bit of a higher rate. So I think the buyers are starting to see that, which we've talked about, when rates go down, prices go up. So the buyers are seeing that. So I feel like a lot more buyers are entering the marketplace right now because, we're out of the holidays and they're seeing that happen. On the flip side with sellers, they're starting to come around to say, listen, the rates are going down a little bit more. My equity is still increasing. I understand I'm not going to be at 3 or 3.5%. We know how many people that are in those rates. I can't tell you how many listing appointments I've been on. You can't force somebody to sell and get a higher rate, but they're starting to come back around where rates are going back down. They do have more equity, and I think that those listings are going to start going into the marketplace as well.
Okay, so just a couple statistics, because I always say real estate's local.
Yeah.
If we look at national numbers, and everything's different. If you look at Texas, Florida, there's a bunch of inventories, and they have a negative. Like their prices actually going down. We're in the Northeast. Well, prices are still going up. So real estate's local. When it comes to that, it just depends where you're at. But if you look nationally, year over year, November 25 or 24 to 25, 1% appreciation. So appreciation has slowed, and where that affordability part comes in is, from 2020, 2021, 2022, you had a 40% appreciations. Incomes did not go up 40%.
Yeah.
So people were like, oh my God, I can't afford a house. How am I going to buy a house? How am I going to buy a house? These prices went through the roof. So with appreciation stabilizing a little bit, depending where you're at, Northeast, it's still going up. New Jersey going up. Connecticut, they're going up. So not so much. But yes, that's that balancing act, and that's why it's so important to actually speak to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about, and knows the different areas they're looking at, because one area can be completely, hey, if I'm buying a property in Tampa, hey, wait another 6 months, it may drop a little bit more, versus, hey, I'm buying a property in the Northeast, you may want to jump on it right now, rates are pretty good, if you wait a couple more months, it could be $10,000 more, right?
I'd like to talk about that 1% appreciation too, and I know it's a little, outside of it. Yeah, so let's use a zip code in the Northeast, like 19154, right? So last year, those homes were probably selling for, can I say a number on here?
Sure, right.
So last year, those homes were probably selling for $300 and let's call it $25,000 on average for a row home in the 19154 zip code. Today, they sell for $360 to $365. So when you think about that 1% appreciation, it's probably accurate, right? 1% of 325 is 32,500, and that's what the price increase. But look at that from an interest rate perspective. Last year, rates were 7%. What is the difference in that monthly payment between 6% and 7%? So yes, you had a higher rate, but is that rate $3,000 a month, that 1%? So yeah, you have a higher rate and you're paying more interest, but the appreciation clearly offsets that cost 100% over time. And I think that puts things into a better perspective for people, which most don't analyze it that way. Right. And if you get to 500,000, it's even more, right? Like that 1%. So that's like how I like to put things into perspective, because the appreciation outweighs the interest rate.
Right. No, without question. And once again, it depends where you're at.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Florida, you may have a negative 10. So that house for 300,000 is now selling for 270. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, with that, it depends where you're at. So it's super important to really know your area. And if you're an agent, you better know your stuff.
If you're 100%. Looking for an expert in PA, New Jersey, or Delaware, we know the marketplace, know, so.
Exactly. Okay, so let's jump into your prediction for 2026. If interest rates stay a little bit lower, you think it's going to be a stronger year? Or?
I think it's going to be stronger. Yeah, and our marketplace again. I think it's going to be stronger. If we're narrowing it down to our brokerage, I think it's going to be it's going to be better for our agents as well. Just based on conversations, consistent conversations with clients. Some are still renting; their rent is going up at the same time. That's a whole different topic, but rent is increasing just because of different factors with the city or the counties.
Okay, so let's jump on to the industry as a whole.
Yep.
Okay, so we've seen a lot of consolidation in 2025. You had Redfin get bought by Rocket Mortgage.
Yep.
You had Anywhere be bought by Compass.
Yep.
There's a bunch of smaller deals. Do you see more consolidation in the market? What are your thoughts as far as that?
It's a hard question for me because I'm an independent brokerage. So I get contacted all the time as an independent brokerage and, to join forces with some of these companies. So my first answer is Yeah, it's going to continue happening. It's always happened, and it will happen more and more as time goes on. But I'm seeing the other end of it too, where I'm seeing, I'm never going to be a Rocket or a Redfin or a Compass or an EXP brokerage. That takes how many years to build. So I think it's a hard answer for me because I've seen other agents open independent brokerages. I've seen those brokerages be contacted by some of these companies like, hey, let's talk, let's do this and let's do that. And the independents are kind of like, we're on our own at this point. This is 2026. No, we're not going to be as worldwide as some of these companies, but we like to be very local focused in the marketplace that we're in too. So I guess to answer the question, I do see this continuing to happen more, but it's a hard answer for me because I don't believe in that.
Okay.
Right? My mindset is stay independent, and kind of be able to control what you do internally.
Okay, well, this is my next question. So if let's just say hypothetically, EXP buys KW and Remax buys, whoever, and you have this consolidation where you have like maybe 4 or 5 giant real estate companies.
Yep.
Do you see that putting a squeeze on independent companies at all?
No.
Okay.
No. Personally,
right.
I don't see, and I think it's all based on mindset, right? So my mindset is, I worked for a franchise before, and I made a life decision to not that there's anything wrong with the major franchises. Listen, I learned a ton where I came from. I still talk to that owner and broker. But from a squeeze perspective, I don't see it unless these companies take over like a Zillow or a Realtor.com or really corner the marketplace, which I don't know if that would happen. I don't see a squeeze. Yeah, they're always going to do more than us. They're always going to have more of a presence naturally, but from my perspective, I don't see the squeeze happening right now.
Okay, and then if you're competing on a listing, if somebody comes in from whatever, Compass, KW, it doesn't matter the name, and you come in and honest, do any sellers turn around and say, well, they're bigger, you've heard of them, I didn't hear of you, or is it the only reason why you're there is because they know you, and that factor trumps everything?
I would say 80-20 rule, right? If we're using 10 listing appointments, 8 of them we know, and we're getting the listing probably 100% of the time, unless we really mess that up or do something. The other 20%, the 2 out of 10, are clients that are interviewing agents. It's really never a conversation of, I'm going to use this company versus your company because they're bigger. It's usually who's charging the least amount of commission, and not really looking at the expert data. And that's usually what happens, where you go in and before you even walk in the door, they're like, what is your lowest commission you can do? So if I have a standard as an agent and the next guy from, a larger company is like, this is what I'll charge to get the listing, then naturally that consumer, that client will go with the other company.
Okay.
So I think it depends on the conversation, depends on the actual client themselves. But years ago, it was, where do you work? I work at this company. Okay, I want to sell my home. I don't even get asked that question.
That's interesting.
And I'm sure that's relatable to a lot of agents with independents or large companies, is how many sellers actually ask, what company do you work for? It's really, I don't ever get asked that question.
Right.
In our listing presentation, over the years, we've refined to discuss that these larger companies from a marketing perspective do the same thing. We're all putting it on the same MLS.
Right.
It is all going to these Zillow.com, Realtor.com, Trulia. It's also, if I list something with Honest Real Estate, it ends up on Keller Williams' website and vice versa. So I think if you explain that correctly and you explain how the listing will be marketed, unless they're looking for the lowest commission, I think that's
right.
I don't see that happening if you have a correct listing presentation.
Right, and what I'm hearing is commissions are negotiable. There's
100%.
There's no set.
100%.
There's no set commission unless you set it for yourself personally.
Can we talk about that for a second? I'm going off topic.
Go ahead.
So,
bring it up.
and I don't think I've said this to you before, but what's happening is, let's assume I'm a buyer agent and you're a listing agent, and you go out on your listing and you negotiate a total commission, and you, let's say you use 5% total commission, 2.5% to you, and the seller agreed to pay 2.5% to me. I go and I look at this property as a buyer agent, and I call you and you don't answer.
Right.
And I text you and you don't answer, and my buyer says, I want to get this listing in as soon as possible. And my buyer agency contract says, my buyer agrees that if I don't get from the seller, the buyer will pay me 3%. I can't get a hold of you.
Right.
When I make the offer, I put 3% on the agreement of sale because that's what my buyer instructed me to do based on our conversation.
Right.
What's happening is the listing agent is coming back and saying, no, the commission is 2.5%. That is not up to you to tell me.
Oh, 100%.
So now my buyer made an offer and it says 3% on the contract. You have to present that to the seller. And I've seen it where sellers say, you know what, I agree to the 3% because I like the buyer. I like the strength of the buyer. I like the terms of the offer. So it's actually almost having a reverse effect
100%.
because of that. To where before, when you can market it, hey, if I sold 2.5% on the MLS, that's what goes into the agreement of sale. That's what went into the cooperation broker compensation form. I'm seeing a reverse effect on that.
Well, let me elaborate. They've already done studies. They've looked at it for 6 months, now 9 months, and so on, that they talked about real estate commissions going down. Actually, buyer agency or buyer's agent commissions have actually gone up, because now you as a buyer are saying, you know, I do all this stuff. My worth is this much. This is what I'm charging, period. Now, the one thing I don't understand, and what you're saying is 100%, I've seen more people, even though if a seller is paying 2.5%, they still charge their client that extra 0.5% because that's the contract that they sign, and they say, hey, I'm worth it. This is what I'm getting paid. So I never saw that before the class action lawsuit. Now I see it a lot. So that's 100%.
Yep.
But the one thing I don't understand, and this is setting up for lawsuits at the wazoo, I do not understand why anybody would negotiate for the seller and have that form sent over. If there's a spot in the contract for the commission,
put it on the contract.
Put it on the contract. For me to safeguard that I know I'm not getting sued, put it in the contract, and then it's being negotiated, because the seller can then turn around, just like the sale price, could put a line through it and say 2.5 and initial it. Then it's a negotiation back for just like the sale price.
Yep.
I don't understand that.
Us as a brokerage, we took the position of, if you're a buyer, you just put it on the agreement of sale, whether the agent tells you or not. It's less forms, it's less confusion. There is no he said, she said. There's none of that. It's on the agreement of sale.
That's it.
You know, and you can't decide that what another agent is being compensated should affect you. If you represent a buyer, you negotiate your commission and how that works. And if you're a seller, you negotiate with your seller and decide how that works. You can't get to the settlement table as agents saying, oh, well, he's getting more than me. Well, negotiate better, right? Have better conversation, and don't worry about what other people are getting paid and how they're getting paid. Worry about, what you negotiate with your client.
Right. And that's something that I to this day, I'll see, the cooperating broker compensation thing, I'll see that come up, and it's not on the contract. I don't understand how that is, because that is why that class action lawsuit came about in the very beginning.
Yeah.
It ultimately makes no sense. Now, I can understand if I'm on a listening presentation. Once again, I'm not a realtor, so I have no clue. I've never sat at a kitchen table. I can tell you that for certain. But I can understand where I turn around and I'll tell my seller, I say, listen, see this contract? You see this line right here? This says that they want from you 2%, 2.5%, 3%. So understand, I'm only charging you 2.5%, or I'm only charging you 3%, or 2%, or 4%, whatever I'm charging, that's what I'm charging. But be prepared that this could come over, and if you talk about that in the very beginning. And the beautiful thing is you can negotiate that number. Instead of me trying to negotiate the compensation for the buyer before the house is even listed.
There's going to be additional lawsuits that come. I don't know if you got time to talk about it and things like that, but there's going to be other lawsuits that come because based on listing contract, how that's created and what actually happens are two different things.
No, 100%. And then even like in Pennsylvania, you have PAR. Pennsylvania Association of Railroads, they're the ones who come up with those forms. But guess what? You can still get sued. You can't say, oh, PAR did this. I'm a part of the organization. No. Some of these things, like, to me, it's mind-boggling. I don't understand it. But once again, what the hell I know? I've sold 0 properties in my life. I don't know. But that's just something I scratch my head. I see contract after contract after contract. Just put it in the contract.
That's it.
It's so simple.
It's simple. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we wrap this up, but with one last question. Okay, so you're on social media all the time.
Yep.
You share.
Yep.
I almost brought you to tears. It reminded me of Jerry Maguire when he was on the show. You're not gonna make me cry. So what is one thing that people may not know about you? It's not super public. Is there anything out there, or?
I don't know if there's anything that's not out there about me. I think everything is pretty much an open book for me, where I tell every single person, we can have any conversation and I'll tell you the truth about anything. So I don't know if there's anything actually out, or actually that I've kept inside that is not out there.
And then, so then tell me, what is the one thing you like to do? Like, what's a perfect day?
I love outside of work, and let's say even outside of family. Do you know what I mean? Like anything outdoors for me. So I have a boat. I love fishing. I love going into the ocean. I love just putting my phone on do not disturb. Whether that's an hour or 3 hours fishing. I love we ride with some friends. Have like ATVs and stuff like that through the woods, where again you put your phone on do not disturb and you literally just unplug and you're just out. And you're just in the world, and you're enjoying what is actually out there. I love vacations. I hate flying. So like I have a ton of places I want to go to explore, but I hate flying. So for me, it's anything that's outdoors. I hate being cooped up in a home. Even though I sell homes, I hate being cooped up in one, because it's just get outside. Like walk around with your shoes off. Like jump in the ocean if you can, or or lay on the ground in the woods if you can. That's the most free thing, I think, on the planet for me.
Okay, last question. Oh, 2 questions. I have one more to this. The last one is contact information. That's easy. So what do you think is your favorite thing in business, in your work? Because we just talked about what you like doing outside of work. Is there any, what is your most favorite thing in your business, period?
Very simple for me. It's helping people achieve their goals. It is, if you're an agent and you goal set, I want to help you achieve it, because it brings you happiness and success. If you're a buyer and you can't get pre-approved and you don't think you can buy a home and we can help you do it, we helped you achieve success. If you're a seller and you have a lot of things going on and you're in a situation and we help you achieve that is success. So for me, I love helping people achieve success in this business. Of course, there's plenty of other little nuances and things like that, but what drives me is helping people achieve their success. And everyone's success is different.
Right.
It's finding out, what do you want, and how can we make that happen for you?
Okay. And then if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they're buying, selling, or want to join Honest, how would they do that?
Call my cell phone, text my cell phone. My number is 267-231-7212. It is also on every single social media post that I have, and it's been like that for about 10 years. My kids sometimes hate it because my phone is like ding, ding, ding. But For me, it's you have my direct cell phone number. Everybody has my direct cell phone number. There is enough time in a day to get back to every single person. If you don't think there's enough time to get back to everybody, it's because you're allocating your time incorrectly.
Okay, so very good. Well, thanks for being on the show. Anniversary, 3 years. You believe it's 3 years?
It's amazing.
Which is, I can't believe it.
You look better. I look worse. What's going on?
I don't know about. Right, we used to have your pictures, and you used to have that catfishing picture when you were like 18 years old. So we had to change the backdrop a little bit because you didn't update your picture.
Yeah,
No, I'm teasing you.
love that.
So
It's true though.
So that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and of course YouTube. This will be airing on YouTube, the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Be sure to subscribe. Help me out. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers, and give me some likes. That always helps the algorithm out. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week.